Hello, this is Ryan Warnowski, and this is my ICOM 495 presentation. We are currently halfway through the semester in the class, and so far after doing several rounds of usability testing, I finally hammered down my final paper prototype. We're going to go ahead and show how we've made it to that process and the decisions and design choices that I've learned to implement into the final prototype. So let's go ahead and get started. Before I even thought of this topic, I did a bunch of research on what it is to be a digital native or digital millennial, and that term should be thrown out the window. But Mark Prensky coined the term, and basically it's just the assumption that millennials have grown up with technology and that they all are avid computer users that can easily filter information online. And that's because we've been around technology, we have grown up with smartphones, it's just been around us, but that doesn't mean we should lump everyone together. In fact, 84% of undergraduates reported the most difficult step in course-related research process was just getting started, and that was said by Head and Eisenberg. So to solve this problem, it is imperative to evaluate how millennials are using the internet and the tools provided in the Web 2.0 landscape. College students also need an environment where they can use each other's knowledge to improve the quality of their research and critical thinking. So my audience for this project is going to be undergraduate students at Ball State University. This is a millennial population that faces the challenges of scholastic research on a daily basis. The group of students targeted will be honors college students, but I'm also going to be looking into journalism students, especially those in the graphics track that might have creative projects and look for critique and feedback. So I've been in contact with some honors classes, and I've also been talking with some journalism students who are getting really excited about the potential of the product. So the purpose of the project is to help the millennial generation build confidence when conducting academic research. To achieve this goal, I plan on creating a WordPress website that fully utilizes the plugin BuddyPress. The goal of the project is to reach out to undergraduate students at Ball State University who, like myself, struggle with research and getting started on large projects. After doing some initial research and beginning the entire process of learning what my problem space is and defining that audience for the problem space, I began to draw early sketches of different design alternatives, one focused on a media approach, one focused on an information approach, and one focused on a personal approach. And what I did is I would then test 5 users, and these students would compare the 4 design alternatives. So each student was asked a question that would regard my initial usability goals. For example, in the chart below you see a multi-person blog, one that allows for various media on each post. So what I would do is I would show the early sketches to each of the students, and they would measure this usability goal I had for the project, or this user requirement I had for the project, and they would measure that against each of the sketches. So what they would do is they would say, sketch X is better than sketch Y, and then they would give me a blanket statement why they thought this was better. So what I came to the conclusion was that in my early sketches, ones that focused on personal and also information seemed to favor better than this weird mix of media. And what most users liked about it is that if they asked a question, they would immediately know if someone answered it to them. They would also immediately know if one of their friends asked a question, and that was just something that really struck home with the users I tested on this first usability test. One of the things they liked about having an information-dense one is that they could consume that information at the way they want to and at their leisure, so that was a positive there. So after I took these early sketches, I started to hone in on an idea of what I wanted for my first paper prototype. The first paper prototype was a mixture between the idea that I needed to focus heavily on an area that can be personal to the user, so there's giving that personal spaces, but also has that separation of the ideas. So using Adobe InDesign, I created a paper prototype that I would use for usability test. So here are 4 pages, including the login page, the home page, a class page, and then a create a class page. The major features of the site include creating private spaces, so users can create a class, and then using their student's email and entering in some information, they can go ahead and send an invitation where people can come into an area and collaborate or post questions. In this initial prototype, I also included a blog space, and this blog space would be open to the public and be very general. Students would also have the ability to connect with each other just using a basic chat function that is separate from blogging or posting in a common area. This would prevent students from having the fear of maybe they didn't want to go to a public blog or even a private post, and they just wanted to have an interpersonal conversation using a chat tool. At the top of the homepage, you're going to see a recent class question area, an answers for you area, and then a favorite post. This was driven behind the idea that people want their personal content given to them. You can see that in the Honors 201 area, the features are very similar as to the blog area, where users have at the push of the button, they can select if they want their post to be audio-driven, video-driven, or even picture-driven, photo-driven. For my second usability test, I created a cognitive walkthrough. The walkthrough was composed of 4 essential tasks for achieving my usability goals. For this usability test, I tested 5 potential users of the web application. Each user was given a note card with the task provided. No help was given to the user. As they went through the task, I followed with a score sheet and observed their behaviors. As I observed each of the users' behaviors, I would fill out a chart very similar to the one you see here. The chart has a comment or the issue the user made, one of the user requirements under principle that I was listing for that particular task, and then a suggestion to improve the area. So as we move on, we're going to kind of go over the findings I found from this test, but just to kind of break down this chart, we can see that the scenario I gave Chad was to look at a response of one of the classmates. Let's go over that again. For scenario 4, I asked Chad, he asked a question, and he was going to look for one response from one of his classmates, and he would go ahead and like it. So what Chad did is he immediately went to the profile page, and he assumed that he could find that information right there. In reality, that is not where I had that planned on the thing. So you can see that Chad took some steps that deviated from the key I created for the task. And just seeing how the users would interact, I would write that down, I would see what they thought and how they acted and what they did. And I was able to make suggestions based on those. So to go over the usability findings, there were several I found on each page. So let's begin. We'll go back to the paper prototype. We're going to go look at, in the top right corner, the home page. When users logged into the prototype, the home page was very overwhelming and information dense. This proved to be too cumbersome for users to understand, and it took too long for them to digest the information in order to make the key relationships among the website tools. One of those key relationships being the distinction between what is public and private. In my idea for the website is that classes would be this private space, but in reality it took the user so long to digest all the information on the home page that they would just go to the blog and they would go ahead and look for a setting to where they could send their post or add a location to where their post is, rather than just clicking class. And it just seemed counterintuitive after seeing the user struggle with it to have a person go all the way to the home or go away from the home page to make a post when they could just have a location that sends it to that private place. So one of the main reasons that users couldn't, and in that task I gave them, the users also did not know that the class section was private because I did not give them that information. I was hoping they'd be able to figure that out without giving the answer away. Another task I gave the users was to create a private class. And while many made it to the page very easily and entered in the information very quickly, I found that all users did not recognize that in the email address section where they were supposed to enter their classmates, most of them would enter their teacher's email, their own email, and this is a major failure of the task because in order to invite people to the public group, the user was supposed to enter in their class information to send them a notification. More findings I found is that each user was confused by the language used in the prototype. So in the original paper prototype, I termed the question area as a blog for advice. And the problem was when I asked users to answer a classmate's question, they would not know what to do. They'd see these blog areas, but they would not associate the blog areas with finding people's questions. So I quickly realized that users wanted to see a feed where they can quickly find questions, and they want that separate area where they can find advice. So that was not present in the original design. Another aspect was that the original design, the profile page, lacked no information that couldn't be found on other pages. It lacked the user's personal feed and answer stream. So another thing that I learned is that in my last task I asked the user to like a post. Along with the like, I had a minus sign originally in my design. And what I found is that users found that the minus sign would discourage them from posting because it would make them afraid that if they got a lot of minuses that they would feel stupid, and that defeats the whole purpose of the entire application, which is to build confidence with millennials. So with that, I was able to construct my final list of user requirements, those including collaborative spaces that allow individuals to invite people to share ideas, post questions, and brainstorm, a responsive website that can be viewed on multiple platforms, a multi-person blog, one that allows for various media on each post, create multiple spaces that are public and private, a notification tool that informs users when a question is posed, separate chat and posting tools, simple and easy to understand navigation, and a comment rating system where users can build confidence. So in total, this is my final vision for what my project is going to be. You're going to have a login page where you can create a profile. Once you do that, you're going to be brought to the home page, and this is going to look a lot different than the paper prototype, because what I've done is I've gotten rid of all the highly information dense blocks and areas. And what I decided is that we'll have a question feed that's very relatable. We got rid of the minuses, and users can go ahead and select where they want the post to go rather than going to class and then posting. On the left hand side, you'll find the class list and the chat options, and on the right hand side, you'll find the answers for you. So that keeps that personal drive there. We also made a change to the blog page. Instead of focusing on a blog, we made it an advice page where you can clearly see it's going to be more streamlined, like a newsfeed rather than a formal blog, because we want users to find this information very quickly. The class page, I've added a search option so that students can search for classes if they might have not have been invited to them, or they just want to see if they can exist, so they can send a request. In addition, you can see on the right hand side I've added a list of requests that users might have been asked. Oh. The Honors 201 page is a class page. You can see that it's very similar to the advice page, and in here you're going to be able to filter through questions and advice. The About Us page is mainly the same. The pillars of the About page are my pillars of my usability goals. You can see that the profile has a personal feed and places the answers for you onto the right-hand side. Creative Class has complete instructions on the left-hand side, so users do not get confused as to what information they are supposed to input. That concludes my presentation for halfway through the semester. Seeing the usability goals have really opened my eyes to what flaws I might not have seen, definitely would not have seen when I was initially going through the project. I definitely know that the project is in a better spot right now, and I'm excited to build and test users again. Thank you.